A young man strangled to death by his own foster dad during a violent confrontation. The teenager, brain dead, grieving family, pulling him off life support.
He had all these lashes from fingers or what on his neck.
Former foster kids line up to make shocking allegations of abuse against Kenneth Taylor.
He just picked me up and chokeslammed me.
The prosecution painting him as a volcanic father figure. But the defense insists he's a caring go-to guy for troubled teens.
Ken Taylor could take these young males and try to turn their life around.
Now a jury must decide if the dad's brand of discipline was first-degree murder. It's Tennesse versus Taylor, and this is In Session.
Welcome back. We're covering the Tennesse versus Taylor murder trial. The foster dad accused of pinning down a teenage boy, putting him in a chokehold, and cutting off the oxygen to his brain. The defense is calling up its witness, and now the defendant, Kenneth Taylor, is on the stand. We're going to break this case down for you with the best trial team on television. Joining me now from New York, In Session's legal contributors Midwin Charles and Sonny Hostin, and we're also talking to Steve Kardian, an expert in the use of force. Thank you, everyone, for being here. No, and he talked about having bad knees, a bad shoulder, but Steve, it looks like he probably got his bad knees from doing too many squats, don't you think? And bad shoulders from doing too many bench presses.
Well, Mike, it's something very interesting here, being an athlete for many, many years, working with professional athletes, working with people that take sports-enhancing drugs. As a law enforcement expert and as a martial artist, I have to look at this and wonder, was he perhaps taking some sort of a sports-enhancing drug? We look at, number one, a man of 52 years of age doesn't attain that size unless he has incredible genetics, sticks to a very strict diet, and works out consistently. Then we look at the acne on his chest and back. That's indicative of possible steroid use. Then we look at number three, that here's a man that people are saying had a mild manner about him. He took in these children, and he had an extreme emotional outburst of rage. And finally, we see that his knees are injured, his shoulders are injured. These are things that are also indicative of possible steroid use, that the body breaks down after you come off steroids.
Well, Steve, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because we've been on the In Session blog. Our viewers have been pointing out these same facts, but we haven't seen that come up in trial dealing with the steroids. But the defense also laid the foundation, and during Ken Taylor's testimony, he talked about how he would roughhouse with the children, these boys in the house. Take a listen to this.
There's been testimony in the trial of you horsing around and goofing around with the young men that have been in your home. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that.
Well, most of them, especially as I started getting older and older, I tried to get out of best I could, but they like to come up and punch you and go, "Come on, old man," and it was just rough play.
Now, why would you let boys, these troubled boys in your home, come up and punch you, have rough play? Why would
It's just the way these guys like to bond with you. You know, I can remember my father doing that, wrestling around. You know, most of these young men never had a father that's, you know, with them. And they also, about a third of them like to do that.
You know, Steve, he talks about this, and we hear about the chokehold that he put on this boy, the 16-year-old kid. And, you know, look, you and I have both had training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the Gracies. And, you know, we know what we're doing when it comes to this. You know, I haven't heard any testimony whatsoever whether or not he had any kind of mixed martial arts training, any kind of, if he was a wrestler, you know. But, Steve, you put together a demonstration for us, and let's take a look at that with, and basically on what could have happened in this particular scenario. Take a look.
I'm going to reenact what likely happened here. This is how we would apply the choke here, here, and here. Bing. I would go this way, and I would squeeze 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 seconds, Steve, for your victim there to tap out. You know, and we heard from the medical examiner, Steve, that if this carotid neck restraint was applied the way it was supposed to be applied with equal pressure on side, 10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah, Mike, I can put somebody out in 8 to 10 seconds. Now, when we look at this from a law enforcement perspective, right, and we look at it from a martial arts perspective, it's a very safe application.
Sure.
When we see a choke applied during a moment of rage, it is exactly that, a rage move. He is intending serious physical injury and or death.
We heard the testimony from the medical examiner talking about it was one of the worst cases of petechia, breaking of the vessels in the face that she had ever seen as a medical examiner. And this chokehold, this hold applied for 3 to 5 minutes. That's still a long time compared, what we just saw at the demonstration with Steve.
It is, and I'm actually glad that we got to see that demonstration and see how a grown man after 6 seconds would tap out, in other words, to indicate that that is enough pressure, let me go. But one of the things, too, that I think we should not overlook was an eyewitness there towards the end of this altercation. Remember, the other foster boy who lived in the home. And he said, which I think is critical, is that the defendant let him go. In other words, let Jordan go when he stopped struggling. So for all intents and purposes, defendant can argue here, based on this testimony from this witness who was there, that he was still struggling and potentially still posed a threat. He let him go when he stopped struggling.
Well, we're going to have more expert analysis coming up. And was it really struggling, or was it some involuntary muscle movement that we heard from the medical examiner? More when we come back.
Kenneth Wayne Taylor, you're charged by the state of Tennessee with the first-degree murder of Caleb Jordan Shelton. Are you guilty of that, or are you not guilty of that?
I'm not guilty.
You're charged by the state of Tennessee with the aggravated child abuse of Caleb Jordan Shelton. Are you guilty of that, or are you not guilty of that?
I am not guilty.
Did you commit any crime against Jordan Shelton on November the 24th of 2007?
No, sir.
What were you trying to do on November the 24th of 2007 with Jordan Shelton?
Restrain him, stop him from attacking.
Back to the Kenneth Taylor murder trial. Their star witness is on the stand, and here to talk about it, in-session legal contributors Midwin Charles and Sonny Hostin. Also with us, a use of force expert, Steve Kardian. Now, Steve, just to wrap it up here, law enforcement officers, they're not taught this chokehold anymore, basically, unless your life is in danger. Do you think that he went too far? 3 to 5 minutes.
Absolutely, Mike. 3 to 5 minutes is indicative that death is going to occur. However, I've got to make a comment on him fighting back. And I had 2 high-level Gracie practitioners sparring, and I thought that they were both defending. They were both facing down, and apparently a choke was instituted. And the bottom guy, I thought, was fighting. I saw his arm convulsing involuntarily, and I yelled, "Stop!" And when he came up and off him, he convulsed for almost 15 seconds, indicative that the choke had been laid on for a very long period of time. So that might be the answer to why his arms were flailing and then stopped. It
could, and that goes right in line with what the medical examiner was talking about, the involuntary movement. I want to thank our guest, Steve Kardian, our use of force expert, and in-session legal contributors, Sonny Hostin and Midwin Charles.